a big clunker, you know, pretty good size, but it was silent, you know. I believe the Ectosound 160 was the sound version of that, but I got the Gaff SS805, which I dumped for $10 on eBay. That's why I will not deal with eBay as a seller, because you don't get nothing for anything. You know, you don't get a damn thing as a seller. You know, I never could. Everything I've tried to sell there years ago, I got dirt for it. It wasn't worth the effort. That's why I have a problem with some of the things up here. The shipping costs more than what I'm asking for the unit. And it's a lot of work, you know. So that's why I discourage shipping it. You know, little items I have no problem. Like that Pentax K1000. I'll ship the whole thing because, you know, I'll do that. If somebody wants to pay for the shipping, I'll do it. Here's some wrestling, June 7th, 1974. Nikolai Volkov versus Killer Kowalski. Haystacks Calhoun versus Larry Sabisco. Yes, sir, but it's all silent. It's all silent. I was into it a little bit, but I only did one reel of it. It's nothing to brag about. Now I wouldn't even waste my time on it. Now, here is the Grand Ole Opry in 1976, the first year I went down there, when they did have country music down there. And they also had Opryland. Believe it or not, in the new Grand Ole Opry House, I never did go into the Ryman Auditorium other than as a tour. You know, they have the bus tours and so forth. But my first year of 1976 going down there, would you believe, it was very echoey. You know, it's seated, I believe it was 4,500 people at that time. I don't know what it is now. But anyways, and I had that big CF 550 Sony boombox with the ECM 99. Funny how you remember these numbers from years ago. I can't even remember how much my grilled cheese cost me that I had about an hour ago. Anyways, used to bring all that in. And the movie camera. And these are sound films. Also loaded to the gills. The reason I loaded them is because sometimes, this is reel number 2. Sometimes it would go into a third reel. I only had like that much. I said, no, I got to try to condense it so it's 2 reels. So when I put on a show, that's how I did it. So it's reel 1, reel 2, reel 3. If it has to go into a third reel or whatever, not a problem as long as there was enough on it to make worth changing over. Because it was a pain in the backside to have to synchronize it again. And but on these are sound films, so synchronization was not a problem because you had the 8mm, Super 8mm sound film has a magnetic stripe, as the ones who are familiar with those sort of things would understand. But anyways, you couldn't do that nowadays. I used to record all this stuff. It was for my own entertainment. I wasn't selling it or anything. You got to remember too that 8mm film, regular 8, as I described in other videos, runs at 16 frames a second, silent film. Sound 8mm, Super 8 sound, and Super 8 silent run at 18 frames a second. Now the fact that it runs at 16 frames a second for regular 8, you'd get about 4 minutes of recording. Playing, I should say. Okay, or recording if you're recording to making a tape, a film, I should say. But when they went to Super 8, the speed was 18 frames a second, 24 for 16mm, but I never shot 16. And sound film, so you only got about 3.5 minutes. So here you got about 8 or 9 entertainers coming up in the time you're sitting there. So you got Roy Acuff up on stage, and I'm recording, but you can't get the whole song in, because if you do that, average song is about 3 minutes, sometimes longer. So if I did that, I'd have one song by Roy Acuff. I'd have maybe, I'd have about 8 rolls of film with me, maybe 10. And it wouldn't last, So in order to get a whole variety, I would have highlights of each entertainer. Each entertainer maybe I would record it for 30 seconds doing one song. When they come up to do a different one, I'll do that. I did that the same way in the WWVA Jamboree. But other than Roy Acuff and a few of the old timers, believe it or not, I enjoyed the WWVA Jamboree much, much better. They had more of a traditional country sound than Nashville. In Nashville now, I wouldn't give you 2 cents. You can pay my expenses down there. I wouldn't go. No, sir. They don't know the meaning of country music anymore. This is country music. Gene Shepard, Porter and Dolly, Ferlin Husky. That's country music. Okay, here's reel number 1 of 1976 Nashville. Natural Bridge in Shenandoah Valley, Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee. Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee in 1976 and 1978, the only 2 years I've ever went down there. That's no longer there. I don't know, they built some crappy condos or some garbage like that, but anyways, hey, I call it like it is, you know. That was a nice amusement park. They'd have rides and stuff, and then you'd have all these little performers, you know. You have that little fiddle player, I think he played with, I can't think of his name, he's a little short guy. He'd jump all over and he'd play the fiddle. He'd be out there on the stage, and then another little outdoor stage. This is during the day, you know. You got Bashful Brother Oswald playing there, and you got the other guy that's usually with him, and then Roy Acuff. I met him one time, you know, and I met Jimmy Wakely and a few others, you know. So, anyways, that's no longer there. They just tore it down, and it's a damn shame, you know. But anyways, that's about it. I get these films back in here again. Unfortunately, as I had mentioned, none of these, there's a good percentage of these that never made it on DVD. And until I can get, even though they're highlights, until I can get them professionally done, but it'll never happen in my lifetime. I just haven't got the money. But of course, these mean a lot to me. Just like family pictures, I'll find a home somewhere for these. They will not get thrown away. Yes, sir. Lots of good memories. You can always keep your memories up here, but I also like to keep them here. So, without getting into a long-winded conversation about that, because I basically touched base on it before, I used to do all these things, and my cousins and their kids and everything really enjoyed it. And then whenever I put the show on for my friends and so forth, they liked it too. Of course, back then things were somewhat simpler, even in the 70s, than they are today. Today, people don't appreciate that kind of stuff. They think it's stupid and dumb. Well, maybe it is, but you know, I always say, if you haven't got a sense of humor, even if it is silly stuff, then you might as well be dead, you know, but life is too short. So, you know, people enjoy things, and I can make them laugh, that's fine. But you won't see very much comedy here on YouTube for my videos, because most of the stuff I did is kind of dumb, and you know, and it will definitely not be appreciated on YouTube by the majority of the viewers. There are some that express interest in wanting to see them, but I have very little of that stuff. Most of it's on those films that I showed you, and they never got onto DVD or any form of video. And some of the later stuff that I did in the early 80s, of course, was on video, but some of that was already on YouTube. And there is a little bit more, but right now I'm not about to deal with that and put it together.